Well, towards the end of today's episode of Rookie to Rookie, I made the pretty reasonable assumption I thought that we'd come back, probably make our way through the transfer window, and there'd be some job interviews based on what's happened over the past 12 months in the save. But no, we're coming back at the start of the new Bundesliga season here at Jahn Regensburg because there were 0 job interview offers. And we start with a derby against Augsburg. How did I not get a job interview offer? I'm good. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 64 of Rookie to Rookie here on Shaun Does FM, still with Jahn Regensburg. I hope you're doing well, and come up today we make our way into the second season of our time in the Bundesliga here with the Jahn. Now, if you're going to recap the transfers that we've done, and then we kick off the Bundesliga season with a derby we take on Augsburg, these days managed by the Tottenham Hotspur favourite for their new manager job, and Thomas Frank. What are Spurs doing? Sacking people because they win trophies oh so Spursy. But hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. But this comes off the back of yesterday's episode, our last one last season, where we just did enough to hold on and qualify for at least the last qualifying round of the Conference League. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. I thought that surely we'd actually make our way through the off-season today's episode and recap transfers when we needed to, but there were absolutely no job interview offers for us during the course of the off-season. There was a World Cup which France won. Rasmus Højlund was the top goal scorer, so maybe there's a massive bug here in FM if that's happening. That's about the only reason I can figure out why we're not getting a job interview, as well as the fact that this haircut I've got actually is making people ignore us now instead of the long hair I used to have. But we're still waiting for our Continental Pro license. Maybe that's what it is. To be fair, it should only now be about a couple of weeks away in games, not too far from getting that Continental Pro license. And surely then it might go up to something like a 4-star reputation, 80% one. Also during the course of the off-season too, did notice that our personality, it says fairly little now. It did say slack for quite a while, so maybe that was an issue. I'm not too sure how we're slack, but apparently we were for a little bit this. Not too sure how we didn't get a job interview offer during the course of the off-season. A quick look at what's over there now. There were some quite big jobs that did pop up. You can see there's not too many at the moment. In fact, one job I thought we have a decent chance of getting that was still there just before I checked here was Club Brugge, because obviously a year ago, Anderlecht came after us, and Club Brugge, a slight improvement on those guys, at least in terms of the season preview. Just check actually what's going on with those guys, because that was a job that we haven't interviewed for yet, but I thought would be a natural step up from a team like Anderlecht who were offering us a job interview last season. And as it turns out, they've just appointed a new manager in Claude Makelele, who somehow got that off the back of just one job at Lons. So yeah, not too sure how they've chosen that guy over us, truth be told, because I think our attribute at this point might even be better than that. But yeah, Club Brugge, I thought honestly the best match that we had during the course of the off-season, quite recently off the back of the World Cup, which, as I said, might have been a little bit of a spanner in the works in terms of teams waiting for that to finish. There was Newcastle quite early on because their manager was replacing the former Liverpool manager at the end of the season, but that was filled up by Ruud van Nistelrooy, who left Roma, and some guy from Osasuna ended up in Serie A with those guys. And also there was Feyenoord for a little bit, that job taken up despite the interest from Stefan Baumgart from Anderlecht. That was Marcelino, the guy who got sacked from Liverpool late on last season. And briefly there was RB Leipzig. Jurgen Klopp's ended up there. So there's been a bit of managerial change, but nothing involving us, which is a little bit interesting. Wolverhampton Wanderers are there. But no, we're in Europe. So it looks like at the moment we're staying here at Jahn Regensburg at least for about the first half of the season. But very surprised that there were no job interview offers. So I guess we move on. Not too sure what's happened there. Maybe that contract extension we signed wasn't such a good idea back at the start of February if we wanted to move on here from Dijon. But to be fair, we had a pretty decent transfer budget, around £25 million, I think it was, despite the fact that there it says our original budget was 13.6. It definitely was a bit more than that. And with Conference League football, I did need to just see what we were looking like in terms of our homegrown players, and we did need to buy a few that were homegrown nation, who were improvements on players currently in the squad. One of them there, you can see we're trying to get rid of in Lino Sousa, because we've found a better homegrown nation player than him, so he's hopefully on his way out the door, even though it will be to Hertha Berlin. But here's the transfer business that we have done. You can see obviously spent a lot more than we got in 38.5 million spent getting rid of 16 million, and it started off with a couple of signings who were homegrown nation. 3 of them there from some fellow German clubs. To be fair, I got my transfer business done nice and early this window, even before that World Cup did start to take place, because lots of teams were waiting for that because they were probably seeing who the best performers were. Some silly team is now probably going to spend lots of money on Rasmus Højlund. But one of the first signings that we did make on a free was Nabamensah coming in from Bayer Leverkusen, and that's because he's homegrown nation and looks decent enough as a ball-wing midfielder, even though he will just be third choice. So I thought that was a decent pickup in the 13.25k a week, which with our wage budget, which got topped up at the end of last season, is not too bad. So Nabamensah comes in just to fill one of those homegrown nation spots here, with us making European football this season. Don't expect to see him too much unless we get a few injuries. Alongside him, we bought in Maximilian Henning from Borussia Mönchengladbach, their second team. This was for a fee of £6 million. Now he is the replacement for Lino Sousa. To be fair, attribute-wise actually might be just a touch better than Uwe Dorn, but for now we'll leave Dorn there being a bit more familiar with how we do things here at Jahn Regensburg. But homegrown nation, a very high wage, but yeah, we had that budget spare, so we bought this guy in, and hopefully he'll do a decent job. Looks a little bit better than who we're trying to get rid of there in Lino Sousa, despite the fact that Sousa has been pretty darn good for us so far in this save. So Henning comes in as a new backup left back, who if we need to probably could usurp Uwe Dorn. Let's see how he gets on early in his time here at Jahn Regensburg. Also, another homegrown nation player we bought, actually an upgrade on Carlos Manrique. This was someone that was a real priority, seeing as he would go straight in to that first team. And that's Thilo Haasman coming in from Hannover 96 for 2 million, rising to 2.2 million. You can look at those attributes there for that deep line playmaker role that we usually use, and you can probably see why we bought him. Lots there of nice yellow attributes at the time at only 19 years old when we signed him. So he looks like a very good signing to step in as a first team player, quite good on both feet, and also the work rate and determination, even though it's not something we'll usually see there with the roles that we play him in, do look quite nice. That signing actually probably the biggest of those homegrown nation ones that we did make. And in terms of squad registration for the Conference League, it was also quite useful that Max Meyer was still at the club, and we've had players that have just been here long enough now in Ruslan as well as Lewis Walden to be homegrown clubs. So thankfully, not too bad there with our registration for the Conference League. 23 players out of 25 we have registered, which is not as bad as it would have been without these free signings. So those were the 3 key ones that we did early to make sure we'd be okay for European registration this season. And then we start to work on the rest of the window. Now, first up, this one got done quite a while ago, actually late last season, because he was available on such a cheap fee, albeit we have loaned him out to St. Pauli this season. And Michael Marston, 750k from Derby County, was a bit of an upgrade on Paul Cooper, another player who's been loaned out this season. But for 750k, this looked like a pretty good deal for someone with that much potential. 21 years old from Ireland and on 2.5k a week. So we've bought him Michael Masterson. We'll see if he develops into a decent player over time, but he's out on loan in these via Bundesliga with St. Pauli. And also, you would have seen me stay off the back of that end of season review, look at someone like Aaron Ramsey, who was complaining about a new contract, and say that was silly because there's a better player available who's a lot cheaper than what we could get for Ramsey. We bought that player. Fabrizio Lucchini comes in from Hajduk Split for 2.3 million as our new first choice advanced playmaker, and honestly, one of the better players at the club entirely. So for that fee, that was quite a good bit of business, only on 13k a week as well, which is not too bad at all. Very well branded for that role we use him in, and he looks like a very nice player indeed. So Fabrizio Lucchini comes in as our new advanced playmaker, another first choice signing for us here going into our first season in Europe with Jahn Regensburg. On the other side, in terms of players we got rid of early, Luigi Bossiogo's release clause triggered by Brighton and Hove Albion. This was a little bit bummer because he was young enough that in a few years' time he could actually become homegrown club and nation, but 2.3 million was enough for Brighton and Hove Albion to take him off our hands. Look at that value now, and we probably should have tried a bit harder to keep him, but unfortunately Luigi Bossio is at Brighton these days. Good business from those guys as per usual, but to be fair, not too bad from us after picking him up on a free, and he only played 4 games, so a little bit disappointed there with that value he does have now, but Bossio is no longer at the club. Also, we got rid of Dylan Murican to Werder Bremen for 3.1 million. In the end, there was a quite good left winger available for a similar fee, just a little bit higher. So Dylan American is now with one of the newly promoted teams here in the Bundesliga again. We did quite well on that one, seeing as we picked him up on a free all the way back in 2028-29. So making some good profit there on some players we picked up for no money. And then we move over back to the incomings. Christo Curvo comes in as a new first choice centre-back partner alongside Ruslan from Rayo Vallecano for 6.5 million. We were looking for someone who Southampton pinched off us from the MLS, who would have been just a little bit more promising and probably a little bit better, but this guy not too much worse, albeit for 1 million more. But he looks like a very good centre-back option, 1.92 metres tall and only 21 years old. Him and Ruslan should be a pretty decent long-term centre-back pairing for us here, considering that Ruslan is homegrown club. So I think there we've done quite well upgrading on Justin Hubner. He's getting on a little bit now in terms of his age, but still here as a decent squad player option. Also, we look to improve in goalkeeper. Both our goalkeepers here last season were a little bit poor. It might be the role. We'll see how it goes here during this first game of the season that we play on camera. But Rome Jadon Owusu-Adoro comes in from Tottenham Hotspur because he wants to win trophies for a fee of 13.5 million. That's probably a bit harsh because we haven't won any here so far at Jahn Regensburg, but certainly a big upgrade on both Lukic and Lingvar, who of course cost us big time in the Cup semi last season against Bayern Munich. So he comes in now as our first choice goalkeeper, does the 26-year-old Dutchman, obviously a little bit older than the age profile the club would like us to sign, but I felt like for the money that we had available, it was probably a good idea to spend that on a new first choice goalkeeper. So Owusu-Adoro comes in there from Tottenham, hopefully can help him win some trophies, seeing as he's been at Spurs, so that probably hasn't happened in the saving to round things off in terms of the incomings. The replacement for Dylan American, Fabian Fernandez from Vélez over in Argentina, 7.5 million rising to 9 million. He's actually an upgrade on Johann Regensburg. Actually, we've upgraded there with the replacement for Dylan American. He's a wonder kid, and boy, he looks quite good, quite a big wage, and honestly, would not be out of place either as a striker, but we're going to play him out left, and actually, we've switched our role out there to suit him as an inside forward, seeing as that finishing, it is so good. So a new signing there at left wing to replace American, who actually replaces the third place getter on the next gen list last season in Johann Regensburg. So fingers crossed he can make an immediate impact here in this Jahn Regensburg team, and to round things off the rest of the outgoings that we did off the back of that, because to be fair, we were quite a bit over the wage budget once all those transfers, they did go through. Kai Borch is a youngster out on loan, Paul Cooper out on loan at Dordrecht, Carlos Manrique we got rid of off the back of those signings. He was a bit unhappy we wouldn't offer him a new contract just like Aaron Ramsey, so we eventually got rid of him to Al Nassr over in Saudi Arabia for 4.4 million, valued quite highly these days. Not too sure how though with that potential that he does have, but he was brilliant for us ever since we got here, signing from Real Oviedo. But last season, a bit of a drop-off, it's fair to say, in that first one up in the Bundesliga, and replacing him with the younger Hasman that we bought him from Hanover did mean he was probably going to cause some issues complaining about his playing time this season. So Manrique's over there in Saudi Arabia, we got 4.4 million for him. Nice profit there of nearly £4 million. Off back of that, a few more loans out of Jarvis Masterson and also Lingvar. With that addition of Owusu-Adoro, we got rid of him to Real Betis. Fingers crossed he might start to fulfill some of that potential off the back of that shocker he had in that Cup semi last season, getting some first team minutes there in the Liga for Real Betis. Off the back of that, we did get rid of Aaron Ramsey for 5.5 million to Portsmouth. As mentioned, with that signing of Lucchini, he really shouldn't have asked about his contract late last season. He wasn't too bad for us in our first season in the Bundesliga, but 5.5 million and replacing him with a player who cost 2.3. Very, very good business. Aaron Ramsey is now back in England at Portsmouth, who are in the Championship. Quite good work from us again there after we did pick him up on a free, and we sold one of our previous cheap buys who was a youngster, Osnada Shari, off to Envigado over in Colombia, 41.5 thousand, rising up to 65k. I believe we picked him up on a free as well. Actually, indeed we did, but that potential these days was not too high. We're quite well served there in right winger and striker. So those are the sales that we did make. One more loan was Vitor Reyes off to Tom Bensley, the former Man City youth prospect. Another loan for him to see if he can fulfill that potential. But honestly, it's not looking too promising with that going down to only 3 stars. And as I mentioned, there might be a bit more money coming in if we get rid of Lino Sousa, like we are planning to. There's our remaining transfer budget, 5.8 million, so it could rise up to something like 7 million. There might still be a little bit of business we can do around deadline day off the back of today's episode. So that's what we've done here in the transfer window, spending most of that money that we did get given. Fingers crossed we can make our way through the league phase of that conference league. Just got to get through the final qualifying round off the back of this game. In today's episode, we take on CSKA Sofia, who are out of Bulgaria, in a non-playable league. So really, that should be a gimme. Hopefully a chance for us there to play some of our fringe players, seeing as I actually took that first round of DFB Pokal a little bit more seriously than I should have when we took on Bamberg, who are a team below the Free Liga, and we thumped them 6-2. So a good performance there in our first competitive game of the season. Let's hope it continues here as we take on Augsburg in our season opener. The derby here for us at Jahn Regensburg. Thomas Frank in charge, which might make them a little bit tougher than they were last season. Of course, last season they were in the Champions League. This season, though, they're coming off the back of a mid-table finish. So we'll see if we can keep the superiority over these guys this season, and especially with this first game as well being at home. In terms of tactics, we are sticking with the 3 that were working late last season. I say working, that might be a stretch, but first game of the season, apparently the 4-3-3 is what suits. We've also still got the 4-2-3-1 and that 4-4-2 diamond for when we need it. In terms of roles, though, there are a couple of new ones. Harsman comes in as a central midfielder instead of a box-to-box one. You'll see it here once we chuck him a bit further forward. Central midfielder, some of those yellow attributes are still being used. Box-to-box midfielder, they're also being used, but there's a couple of pretty average ones as well. So switching that to a central mid instead of a box-to-box midfielder. And as I mentioned before, with Fernandez coming in inside forward instead of an inverted winger, seeing as we've brought him in and he has that nice finishing, could also do a job up front. But in terms of the other changes from last year's team, obviously the goalkeeper and Cuervo coming in there for Hubner, who drops down to the bench alongside Lukic. We've got Lucchini there, replacing the departed Aaron Ramsey. Harsman for the departed Carlos Manrique, and Fernandez at left wing with Johan de Berquia dropping down to the bench. To be fair, there's not too much change to our usual squad here at Jahn Regensburg. The only one that's also there on the bench is Maxi Henning, who is the backup left back. So fingers crossed with our good dynamics, we can pick up here a good result to start the season as we are at home in the derby. Quick look too at the season preview. Augsburg there were predicted to finish around 10th. Actually on the screen it says 8th, but we a lot higher up than we were last season, up there in 14th. So definitely should not be involved in a relegation battle this season. You'd expect that too, seeing as we finished in a European qualifying spot last season, and this year we have a stronger squad in terms of quality. But of course, with European football being thrown into the mix, there might be a couple more injuries, and if we can make another deep run in the DFB Pokal, that could certainly test our fitness. So we'll see how things go here this season. Might be a bit more of a struggle to try and qualify for Europe this time around, unless we can go quite deep in the Conference League. But of course, there are some decent teams in that Conference League, just like RB Leipzig, who have now got Jurgen Klopp in charge. That's a little bit filthy, having him down there in that competition. He's just resigned from the German national team job and got replaced by the previous RB Leipzig manager. So that's how that came about during the course of that post-World Cup timing before we got stuck in to the start of this Bundesliga season. But we're going with the 4-3-3 here as our Augsburg. So let's see if we can pick up another win over these guys. So far, I'm pretty sure haven't lost to them, especially in the home game. Took a couple of late goals with our 4-2-3-1 late last season to pick up a 2-1 win. Fingers crossed this time with a 4-3-3 from the get-go. We can do a pretty good job here in front of our home fans. It's definitely a stronger team on paper than we had last season. So let's hope we can make another good start like we did in our first season up in the Bundesliga. But unfortunately, the first highlight here, it is Augsburg, who are on the ball there in the green today, and they knock it about there inside the final third. Go back there to Mai, and now Cisse is on the board. To be fair, so far putting a pretty decent press here on this Augsburg team, but for now they do find some space here. Eventually get out to the left-hand side, and they now start going field, but that's a poor pass and nice work there from Harsman, who can make an interception. Miller, for some reason, goes searching for that ball, but Walden will pick it up, squares it. Miller's out of position, but Fabian Fernandez, as that inside four, puts it away. Those two new roles we've just selected, doing a pretty good job early. Harsman with the interception, to be fair. box-to-box midfielder might have done that anyway, but certainly the run in here from Fabian Fernandes is quite good, seeing as Muller got pulled away with that ball. For some reason, didn't see that Walden should be getting that one, but Fernandes puts it away for a debut goal. Two good bits of work there from those players we have put on to different roles than last season and two of our new signings, and we take a nice early 1-0 lead. So it looks like here might be getting off to a decent start. Late last season, our goal scoring was a bit concerning with this Jahn Regensburg team. Let's hope this season, off the back of the break, we can actually pick it back into gear. To be fair, in the preseason, our strikers haven't been doing too great a job, both Muller as well as Levente Toff, but that first half was a very quick one, but we've got a 1-0 lead, and so far Augsburg have not done anything at all. So despite the fact we've hardly been convincing ourselves, especially with only 44% possession, I think for now we'll leave things Muller and Dawn not going too well out there on 6.5s, but nothing too concerning, especially with a 1-goal lead. So I'm relatively happy with how this is going. If we can pick up 3 points on this opening match day against a decent Augsburg team with a little bit of an upgraded manager and Thomas Frank, you'd imagine from what they had previously, this would be a pretty good start, even though we are at home as we make our way about 10 minutes here into the second half. Now, Lewis Walden picks up a yellow card, as does Cuervo. We've got decent subs for both those guys, so we'll do that now. Lazar at right winger and Hubner can come off the bench there for Cuervo, that long-term partnership that he has with Ruslan at the back. But right off the back of those subs, there is a throw-in here to Augsburg. They knock it about again here inside the final third, but a good block there on the shot. Not too sure if our new goalkeeper in Owusu Adolu would have got to that one. I'll try not to butcher that name, but it is a little bit of a mouthful. But Dawn has dropped down to a 6.4, so a debut in the league here off the bench for Henning. Let's see what he can do. Hopefully help us hold on here to our 1-0 lead, because second half, we've got some shots off, but nothing that we're seeing, which is a little bit concerning. Augsburg look to be finding their way into this game a little bit more. Muller now drops down to a 6.4, might do something off the back of this highlight. Unfortunately, don't clear it out there for a corner. They take a shot there through Murkoma, and it comes off Lopez. It's an own goal, so maybe should sub him off as well, but that is a little bit unlucky. But to be fair, Hubner probably should have headed that one out of play or even let it go. It might have even been straight out there for a goal kick, but big deflection on that one. It's an own goal for Sebastian Lopez, and indeed, he drops down to a 6.5. So for our final sub here, Levente Toff up front for Muller, who's not been too great today, and La Rosa for the own goal scorer in Lopez, because FM, they love picking on an own goal scorer after it happens. So we'll make sure that shouldn't be an issue here in this game, but that's now all our subs used. Let's hope we can find a way to come back and actually grab all 3 points from this game. A draw against Augsburg on paper, not too bad, but off the back of a pretty impressive first half, would be a little bit disappointing if we blow a lead here, but unfortunately, there's not too much happening late. About to make our way to the final 5 minutes. Let's just get there as Alex Jimenez has picked up a yellow card. Might be time for us here. Go a bit more attacking. Also, maybe switch to the 4-2-3-1, which did work in that game last season. But our analysts did recommend the 4-3-3. So for now, I think we'll just switch it to a more attacking version of that 4-3-3. All the wide players, they can go into attack. And also, let's up our tempo and go with an attacking mentality to see if that might work here. And we can find a way to pick up all 3 points. But so far, this game has been relatively even, unfortunately. Just that own goal which we scored, which might prove costly. I say scored, it was a big deflection. But let's hope here now we've gone attacking, we can find a way to grab winner in the last 5 minutes of this game. But unfortunately, it's not looking like it. An own goal there from Sebastian Lopez in the second half does prove costly. Cancel out that nice goal there we scored at the 15-minute mark, which was on the counter-attack there. Nice work from two of our new signings in Hasman and Fernandes. But unfortunately, it's just the point there from our season opener. Augsburg are a decent team, so it's not awful. Stats-wise, probably a game that we should have won, but that own goal proves costly, and we drop points early in front of our home fans. Will still be encouraging with our guys here, because not expected to be that good a team this season based on that season preview in Augsburg. As I said before, they're a decent mid-table team, but a little bit frustrating there that we weren't able to get the job done in front of our home fans, because certainly early last season that was something that we were quite good at. A 1-1 draw to start the season in the derby against Augsburg. So an okay start to the new Bundesliga season here with Jahn Regensburg. Would have been quite nice to hold on there for a win, but unfortunately doesn't happen in the derby. Might partially be my fault as well, seeing as we played a 4-2-3-1 in every preseason game. we were actually quite good looking with that 4-2-3-1. Maybe should have actually switched that late like I was threatening to do. But an okay result there with the 4-3-3. Let's hope now we can go back to the 4-2-3-1 and get past Sofia relatively comfortably in that Conference League qualifying round and make our way through to the competition proper either side of Eintracht Frankfurt away, which might be a bit tough there in between those Conference League qualifiers because they have started the season with a 4-0 thrashing of Freiburg join up top with the defending champions in Borussia Dortmund. But I think that will do it for today's episode. Still here at Jahn Regensburg, we spent a fair bit of money. Our squad does look a bit stronger, but could only manage their draw on the opening day of the season. If you enjoyed this episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. We'll come back tomorrow. Now, it probably depends on what we get Conference League-wise. Fingers crossed to get past Sofia relatively comfortably. Otherwise, might need to come back for the second leg. And also, scheduling-wise, not sure when it starts. So it could change things this season, what's happening in terms of the Conference League once those fixtures do get scheduled if we don't bottle qualifying. But Bayern Munich at the start of September, that looks quite interesting, as does Bayer Leverkusen. So I think for now, we'll preemptively schedule Bayern and Bayer in tomorrow's episode, but obviously the Conference League, that could change that. So until then, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.